for murders because it's referenced so many times. A lot of the points I put on the map here are actually people talking about Eva Koo and then other murders that occurred. Actually, June 14th, 1934 is when the murder occurred. The state trooper, Arthur Diffendale, was killed in 1951 on June 14th, 1951, so it was the same date. And that was discussed in the Daily Star as well. Okay, so just, I'm not sure, I'm just going to go quickly over Eva Koo, Martha Clift. Actually, they both killed him. They both killed Harry Wright. This is Harry Wright. Accomplices were Gladys Shumway and Harry Nabinger. They were never indicted for anything. Eva Koo got the electric chair. Martha Clift actually served, I think, 12 or 14 years for second-degree manslaughter, even though she's the one that ran him over. We'll talk about that. The murder occurred on Route 7. There was a Woodbine Inn. I don't know if people know Peterson Road up on Crumhorn Mountain. Peterson Road, Crumhorn Mountain. The murder occurred at Scott House on Barilla Road. That's a picture of the Scott House with the car in the driveway. We'll talk about this later. This is the body of Harry Wright. That's the actual body of Harry Wright after he was exhumed. This was the Woodbine Inn where Eva Koo ran we call it I wouldn't call it a brothel. It was shady. Let's just say it was shady between alcohol and escort services. This is what it looks like now. So that house is not there. That was destroyed in 1951. It was razed. So this house is not the Woodbine Inn, but it's the same property. So we're not going to see that. Also, if you go up on Crumhorn Mountain, the Scott House is not there. So don't be looking for it. You can drive by, you can see how dark and shady it was up on Crumhorn Mountain at the time, but that's not there. And I have to reference the book Eva Koo Murderess by Niles Eggleston. He did most of the research on this. And we'll talk a little bit about Dorothy Kilgallen, who sensationalized this whole murder. In 1934, you have to think about the time. All these murders tell you a little about the events and the time. It was, Prohibition was over, 1933, I believe. But she had been working in Oneonta during Prohibition at Chestnut Street, 39 Chestnut Street. That building's not there either. That was torn down in urban renewal. Actually, my father, the wagon wheel, was just down the road from 39 Chestnut Street, where Eva Koo was on the second floor building, and that's where she ran her business.
House of ill repute.
Pardon?
House of ill repute.
Yeah, House of ill repute. Okay, so that's kind of the layout. Crumhorn Mountain, Route 7. Wright's body was dumped about 200 yards north of Woodbine Inn. So he was killed up here in Scott House, brought down here to Route 7, dumped on the side of the road. Eva Koo hopefully thought that he would be viewed as being run over, and she would be able to collect some insurance, quite a bit of insurance. 1934. I just want to go quickly through a timeline for the Eva Koo saga. Because I mean, this murder kind of lives on. It goes on, and people know that it's going to be a movie, I think, with some locals in early fall. I think it's going to be out, and there's YouTube videos on Eva Koo murder, actually from Britain. There's been crime stories written on it, articles, of course the books I mentioned as well. So this goes on and on. It's just ideal for a sensational murder. Two women murderers, you have Prohibition, you have roaring 20s, you have depression going on, you have bootlegging going on, you have prostitution going on. So there's a lot of stories intertwined here, and it just lives on and on. Harry Wright was born October 1880. That's important because of the tombstone I'm going to show you a little bit later. January 1931, Harry Wright's mother dies. That's important because then Harry Wright went to live with Eva Koo based on his mother's wishes. Not a very good wish. Yeah, April 1933, Koo and Cliff, Martha Cliff, write in the Bible that Harry's birth date is 1885. That's important because they were accumulating insurance policies on Harry Wright. Harry Wright was not a very, he was a little bit slow. He was a drinker, and he liked to just hang out with Eva, and he trusted her very much. The insurance policies, if Harry Wright is under 50 years old, this shows the intent of Eva. If Harry Wright is under 50 years old when he dies, he'll get double indemnity. Plus the insurance premiums are lower. So Eva was planning from 1933, April 1933, and the murder occurred, of course, June 1934, for Harry's demise. October 33 to 34, 20 life insurance policies purchased with 1885 as the birth date. $10,000 of double indemnity. So 1934, $150,000 maybe is what is collected. And Eva Koo was the recipient on all the policies. She was the benefactor. May 20th, 1934, Koo and Wright and Naviger hire a stonecutter from Worcester to change his tombstone and the date on his tombstone. So that's just another piece of evidence, in addition to changing the date in the Bible of when his birthday was. So this was a long-term plan. So Eva Koo is the beneficiary. May 21st, 1934. You can see it's getting a little bit more closer to the murder. They did a dress rehearsal of this murder. May 30th, 1934. They actually went up to the house and did a dress rehearsal of these four went up, not Harry. They said, okay, this is where we're going to kill him. We're going to do it this time period, and everything will be good. But they didn't realize that somebody saw them there. And this Harry Zindel was the guy who saw them, and he told the owner of the property that somebody may be burglarizing your property. So he told Eva Fink that somebody was there. They didn't know that he was there, so they were seen at that particular time, and that came out in the trial. June 2nd, 1934, Wright's birthday is changed on the gravestone. June 14th, Harry Wright killed Ben Hunt and Ivett Scott Fink were there. June 14th, 1934. That's when he was killed. They told Harry that they were going to drive up and steal some shrubbery, wherever the shrubbery is here in the Scott house. So Harry went with them. He got out of the car. Eva hit him over the head with a mallet. He wasn't dead. He was stunned. He said, and he actually said, according to Martha Cliff, I know why he took me up here. Martha Cliff was driving. She drove over him. He still wasn't dead. She backed up over him. At that point, they think he was dead. They took him. He was dead, but this is the strangest thing. Ivor Fink, who was the property owner, and Ron Hunt were driving up there, and this is like 8:30 at night, so you know you got a lot of shady trees. It's very dark and dusty. Harry was killed. The body was put under the car. Ivor Fink and Ron Hunt who was looking for property up there with Iva Fink, stopped. Harry Wright was under the car, and they were hiding him. This was 1 minute, like 1 minute after he was killed. They talked for like 5 or 10 minutes, and then Ava said, well, I'm going to report this, or something. Or maybe she didn't say, I'm going to report this, but they left and told Eva and Martha Cliff, okay, you got to leave too. So after Iva Fink and Ron Hunt left, then they left. Koo and Cliff left. And what they do, they put him in the car, they drove down and dumped his body on Route 7, Woodbine Inn, and said, and then they called the police at 9:30, I think, and said, I can't find Harry Wright, Eva Koo, because Harry was living with him. I can't find his body. I mean, I can't find where he is. He said he was going to go for a walk. So the troopers came by, they found the body on the side of the road, and the coroner initially said, yeah, he must have been hit by hit and run. So it was put down as a hit and run, but then the next day, some questions started to arise. She called the insurance company and said, you know, Harry died, I want to start collecting on the insurance. Iva Fink and Ron Hunt, who saw the murder 1 minute after he was murdered, they reported the license plate of the car to the state police. So the state police were starting to put two and two together, and then they talked to people at the Woodbine Inn and say, no, Eva Koo wasn't there at that particular time. So Eva Koo and Martha Clift were taken in for questioning June 16th, 2 days after. Actually, Eva Koo went to the funeral of Harry Wright. With the questioning, Eva and Martha Cliff were questioned for something like 36 hours. And this was brought out in the trial as a miscarriage of justice. They found, the state police went without a warrant to find insurance policies, some 20 insurance policies. And this was brought out in her defense as a reason for a mistrial. None of that flew during the trial, but that was brought up. She was questioned for 36 hours. Martha Clift and Eva Koo were actually brought up to the Scott House at one point during the questioning separately. They were brought up there separately, but they were up there for a couple hours after Harry Wright's body was exhumed. So that's Harry Wright laying in front of the car. And they wanted to see who was actually driving the car, because Martha Cliff had confessed, because she thought she could get a deal that, well, Eva Koo's the one that hit him. And there was a question, well, who drove the car, and blah, blah, blah. They wanted to see who could put Harry Wright's body in the car, as well as some other details about where was the mallet and things like that. They questioned them for like a couple hours at that site, and that was unusual to say the least. June 16th is when the exhumation occurred. August 13th, the murder trial started. The jurors taken to the murder scene. Harry Wright was exhumed again. But he was pretty ripe at that point, and the jurors didn't like it. That didn't last that long, so I don't know how effective that was. But they were taken, and the jurors were wined and dined. I mean, they not even wined and dined, but they were taking to ball games, taken to dinners, just to keep them active. Dorothy Kilgannon really sensationalized the whole trial, as I mentioned before, and it was national news. It was all over the place. People were flying in to Cooperstown on planes, landing at Seagull Lake. So it was a big deal, and the courtrooms were packed. Eva Koo was charismatic. She was kind of somebody described as a Jekyll and Hyde. Sometimes she could be warm and friendly and outgoing, and other times she's steely-eyed, cunning. And I think by her, you can see how cunning she would have been with that plan with the insurance policies. I mean, that's a long-term plan. It's a long-term retirement plan. September 6th, 1934, Eva was convicted, sentenced to death, and Martha Cliff was sentenced to 20 years. She didn't get quite the deal she wanted, but she was out on appeal, I think, 1947. Eva Koo was executed. I mean, the case was appealed, but it didn't go anywhere. June 27th, 1935. So almost within a year, she was tried and convicted and executed at Sing Sing in an electric chair. She was not the first woman executed by electrocution at Sing Sing. She was the fifth. I actually looked that up because people think that she was the first woman, but she wasn't. She was the fifth woman electrocuted. In 1947, Martha Clift was paroled. She lived quite a while. She died in 1983 at Syracuse, New York. She changed her name to Martha Compton, which was her maiden name. I don't know, I'd love to see if she ever wrote any diaries or things, but I don't think she did. One more thing. If you're ever at Portlandville, you want to see where Harry Wright is buried. It's kind of interesting because you can see actual evidence that was used in the trial. If you go to Portland, it's not a well-kept cemetery. You've got to hike up a hill. You got to park. It's right across from the kayak rental place in Portlandville. You go up to the left, up a hill. It's up on the right-hand side. Right is in the front, and in the back is a little more detail. I know you can't see all this, but seldom do you get to touch the evidence, and you can see where Harry Wright's change of birth date is. It was changed to 1885, and then Eva Koo was also listed on the tombstone, and she was erased. So if you feel that tombstone, you can feel where that was erased later on after she was executed. And this is a picture of the exhumation of Harry Wright. And I took this in May. I'm sure it's well overgrown now, but this is almost the exact angle that the exhumation occurred. So this is Harry Wright being removed from the grave, and this is what it looks like now. It's a little tight. We actually go up there. It's a little, I'd say, spooky, but there's not a lot of people. I don't know if people are being buried there anymore or not, but it's an old cemetery for sure. So that's 3 murders in Otsego County. I appreciate it. Yes.